First of all, thank you to the organization and everybody who's doing such a great job here. And my name is Najeeb Khalid. I'm the CEO of a company called 2Photon Research. Our expertise is not in aptamers primarily, it is in photonics and science. And therefore, I would like to emphasize that any questions on aptamers, I probably will not be able to answer with any degree of depth. But how we have dealt with the issue of making aptamers work in diagnostics is what this presentation is about. And therefore, I'll just start. Now, let me see how this works. This is my team. Of course, there are other people behind it. 3 people can't do everything. And Elias Hurley is in charge of the biochemistry, and Alexander Novikov on the photonics and engineering side. Therefore, there's software, there's mechanical engineering, system design. As you will see, there's far more to it than this. This talk is going to go through the aptamers, which I don't have to talk about, but the diagnostic side of it, and what you're familiar with, some kind of a molecular beacon. We call it an aptamer molecular photonic beacon. And then the structure and applications, some examples, and the test devices, and what challenge we see remaining to make this a normal standard technology to be used by everyone. The concept of our aptamer molecular photonic beacon is selected DNA aptamer, mainly because of stability compared to any other type, to bind to the target biomarker. Fabricate the aptamer molecular photonic beacon, and they're specific to a target, and obviously they're called photonic because when they bind to the target and we excite them with the excite wavelength, you get photons coming at the emit wavelength. And there comes the physics part of it. Beyond that, it's all physics. Once the photon is there, the rest is very easy for us to handle. We have gone beyond just detection of photons to very high sensitivity. We have also gone and connected to the cloud. So if you have, let's say, 5 million tests being done in one day, all the data is in the cloud, and our benchtop allows access to the data and also allows it connection to any future AI processing that might be required. So the AMPV diagnostics, if we succeed in implementing it, will give us the advantages that aptamers vials can be stable for, we have seen up to 2 years. And they will survive at room temperature. No special storage, no special techniques. If the aptamer is selected correctly, very high affinity, very high selectivity compared to any other methods that we'll see, the cost of making them and the method of fabricating aptamer-based vials is very simple. We have seen in our lab that we can work with AMPV down to 100 microliters per vial, and vial is 4 milliliter, and the rest is the standard water with its SPB solution. The vial, as you can see, contains the GS1 code and all the rest of it, so it allows us to look at the vial digitally. And we don't have to enter any data. Our solution we are presenting is fully digital, reading the health card automatically, reading the driver's license, any ID, and then doing the test. There's no data required by anyone. For the aptamer molecular photonic beacon, we have used 2 morphologies, the hairpin and the duplexed aptamer. In either one, we have to make sure that when we form the MPB, the quencher and the fluorophore are together. And when the binding occurs, they're not. And that's what this shows. This is the process which for people in this field of aptamers, this is obvious to all of you. But so far it is iterative. It'll go through iterations when you get the right modulation, depth of modulation, the right change in morphology to make it work. A few words on fluorophores compared to the normal application of fluorophores labeling is that we need the Stokes shift, the distance between the wavelength for exciting the aptamer and for the emit light needs to be large. The larger it is, the higher the sensitivity will be. And we have chosen an aptamer with about 165 nanometer Stokes shift. Without that, it has to counter the autofluorescence, which I will show you, of blood and saliva. Most of the major content of the sample of the bacteria, viruses we're looking for. So so this is a critical area. The quantum efficiency is important also, but you may not get the highest quantum efficiency, which can be overcome by changing the ratio of the aptamer to the potential sample. And just a small diagram of the change in state, how the fluorophore accepts the photon and releases a photon at a different wavelength. There is a drop in energy. So the output energy will always be low compared to the excite photon. These are some data we have gathered on the autofluorescence of the human saliva and the human blood. And there you will see that unless your wavelengths of emission are out of this particular spectrum, you will suffer huge amount of fluorophores that you're detecting, which will dilute the sensitivity. It will make it worse. That's why we are at the output is somewhere close to 650, 690 nanometers. We use a standard quencher, and this means that all the aptamer molecular photonic beacons, no matter what the target is, the excite wavelength and the emission wavelength are the same. What that means is the same device will work for no matter what your aptamer molecular photonic beacon is targeting. Therefore, the rest becomes standardized. Therefore, a single device sitting in a pharmacy can detect different viruses, different bacteria, and the operator doesn't even have to know, as long as he knows what vial to put in, and if it's the wrong vial, it will know. So that is back. I think I've lost. Restart it. Because I can't see somehow. Now I can. No. Now I have bifocals in the wrong angle. Couldn't see what. Yeah, just to talk about two of the ones that we've been working on. And I have to give a shout out to Gregory over here, who spoke earlier. The SARS-CoV-2 aptamer, Gregory gave us. It was his intellectual property, and it worked very well. But we had difficulty replicating it with the same quality of results. And as time went on, the COVID panic has dissipated, and obviously COVID itself has changed. So it requires more work, and we'll continue that. However, in the meantime, there was a study published by Abbott It was not their study, it was a study done in Scotland. And the references are on our website on some of the documents. And that shows that if troponin is detected at a very, very low level, like 5 picograms per 100 microliter, it is a leading indicator by 18 months of cardiovascular disease. Considering that half the world's population is probably going to die because of that, it's good if you have 18 months to know to change your habits a bit. Now, obviously, one should change one's habits anyway, but like I know, I didn't. So based on that single fact, and more studies are being done, that such a low level, you can tell that your heart is, and if you track it, for example, if you get a troponin test done every month, especially with our approach or similar approach, it isn't, your doctor has it, the pharmacists have it, the healthcare system has it, you have it, and you can see whether it's going up or down. The troponin is the enzyme from the heart that is tested as soon as you're taken in for because you think you have a heart attack, or the ambulance guy thinks you have a heart attack. The first way to differentiate is troponin. There are a couple of different types, actually 3 types, but one is responsible as a leading indicator. The testing is done at a higher level, but the Abbott study is important that that if you do it at about something like 6 magnitudes more sensitive, it has more importance. But right now, especially with women, heart attacks are silent. There's no way to know whether you have a heart attack or not. Men also, some of the times, you cannot tell. So the first thing they do is to figure out whether you have one or not. So they don't give you the wrong stuff. So that is, we went to, but so it is similar to tracking your diabetes with blood sugar. And with a simple test like this, because the aptamer-based aptamer molecular photonic beacon has one very big advantage. The test is done in 10 seconds. So you don't have to wait for the lab. You can test anywhere in an ambulance. And the same for COVID, same for any other thing this is applied to. The test is trivial, quick, easy, recorded. Now we come to the physics part of it, which might be slightly interesting. A single fluorophore emits 2 to the 10 to the 8 photons every second. The fluorophore you're using is 75% quantum efficiency. And at this wavelength, we get about 3 into 10 to the minus 19 joules. And then this ends up that every second, we are getting 4.5 into 10 to the minus 11 watts. Our more advanced device, which is in the final stages of approval, is we expect it to be able, we have measured the power in lower than picowatts in 1 second, and we expect to be detecting picomolars. And that will give you better than 5 picograms per 100 microliters. Now this will apply to troponin, but there are also other biomarkers that this low level of sensitivity will be important. This shows you the speed. First of all, most of the time you spend is in mitigation. Is the vial there? Is the right vial? Have the date expired? All of this is just built into it. And this you cannot do you cannot rely on it if a human is doing it. Machines don't make that kind of mistake. And the rest is very simple. The test we can do 1 second. If more time is required, if the number of fluorophores is too low, we just wait a few more seconds. We use a smartphone as the human interface. And that is why we can read the driver's license. We can read any barcode, any QR code, any the GS code, all of that is built in. None of this is obvious to the user. The user just sees a cell phone and press a button. Actually, there's an animation on our website, which because of time, I didn't put it in. You can see that there's absolutely, basically nothing required except making a phone call. Press something on the screen a couple of times, and that's the end of it. It takes about 5 seconds to load into cloud because of so much encryption is required and so much data is to be stored. The time required for the aptamer molecular photonic beacon to interact with the target is accomplished while you're taking the sample, putting it in, and putting it in the box. The application is not only in medical diagnostics. I came to know because my involvement in some other company that the amount of ammonia being dispensed into the water by industrial companies is going to be about 100 trillion parts per 100 parts per trillion. So next year in Canada, apparently this will be the rule. Now, how do you detect that? Well, the equipment is very expensive, mainly is based on spectroscopy. But it seems that we can do it with this technique. So this can be applied to detection of metal contamination, ammonia. We don't know that. We have not done it. We don't, but the calculations show that this should be doable because aptamers to detect copper already exist in the literature. Because how do you detect a single atom? Well, the only thing I can see is the aptamer. As long as you can detect at one aptamer, one fluorophore, and we can. Some comparison with other methods. The most important part of the aptamer photonic molecular beacon, as we have developed it, is a point of care device. It's not a lab device. Any other method may be even better, but it will require a lab, it will require training. This de-skills it down to, you can use it at home or in a pharmacy, well, anywhere. What's the other pros? This is easier, faster than obviously antibodies, and it lends itself to a common evaluation device. So in the device, we have to measure whether the target has been found or not are the same regardless of the. So it's a standardized platform for diagnostics. Now, versus other diagnostic methods, well, it will vary depending. I mean, it's not that this method can be applied to everything, but definitely to organic molecules and some metals. This is our first device. It's no larger than a cell phone, well, about twice as large as a cell phone. No power. There's no active component inside it, so there's no heat. All it has is a cell phone, which has all the intelligence and the capability. Now, for this to work, we don't go down as low as sub-picowatts because we are limited by the LED and the camera. And because of mathematics that we have, like fast Fourier transforms and, and convolutional algorithms, and by the way, MRI and CT scans also use fast Fourier transforms. It's a wonderful technique. I happened to teach it in 3 universities a long time ago when I was young, but I still remember how it works. That is why we are connected to the cloud, because the cell phone is connected to the cloud. So, but the software has to go down to a very low level of hardware to be able to do all of this. This is the newer device, which does require power. Communication is still with the phone, but all the optics are different, and all the filters and optics, and that is why the power of the exciting wavelength is much higher in watts. And our lenses and the filters are large. So our collection angle is much larger, much larger. And that is why we are able to come down to this level of, we are collecting about 10 to 25 fluorophore activity. We can differentiate when any activity of the vial changes by 25 fluorophore. That's an extremely small amount. And as I have already said, it's all digital from the test to the benchtop. For example, all the testing we did over the last 2 years, something like 10,000 tests. You can see all of them, and you can sort them, you can chart them. This is showing one of the features of the benchtop where you can see the map of the world, see where the tests are going on. You can separate it by which test, troponin or tuberculosis or COVID-19, and whether they're coming out negative or positive. And this is within about 5 to 10 seconds of the test having been taken. It doesn't matter where it's been taken. It's all connected. So this is what you're seeing, and this kind of power will spread to almost every device, not only ours, but every other device. We are using a Google Cloud with all the Google encryption, but somebody will use Amazon, somebody will use Microsoft, somebody will use just a link to our cloud. Now, I want to mention a few words. All of this is hard work, especially as you know, and people have said that to get an aptamer to work is not simple. We are encountering a lot of iteration and testing different versions, different morphologies before we can prove that it is ready to go into the wild to be a product. So what do we need? We need software in silico methods to take a sequence of the target, try different target sequences, and then try the aptamer in 3D morphology on the screen before we go to the lab. This is already happening in some areas, and if a couple of companies who are focusing on in silico methods of modeling of proteins, if we can apply those techniques to a new architecture, which is the new graphic processor, we should be able to do real-time simulation of aptamer binding targets and seeing the results. And if I have time next year, I will focus on it. Thank you very much.